Hey there, Matt Easton, Scholar Gladiatoria, and I'm here to do a kind of review of the Red Dragon gloves. Now, some of you might think, well, why are you doing a review of these, Matt? They've been around for ages. There's hundreds of them in my club, you know, they're not good at certain things. They're okay at other things. Why are you doing a review of these things that you've done a review of before and everyone's had for years? Well, that is precisely the point. So lots of people I have noticed on the interwebs, particularly on the Facebooks, say that these are rubbish gloves for HEMA. And are they? No. And I'm going to make the case of why they're not rubbish gloves, and actually why, at least in some regards, they're the best we've got. They're the best gloves, okay? So let me explain. So first of all, I would say probably the majority of people out there buying these gloves in the HEMA world are probably longsworders who are buying them for sparring, probably with nylon swords, okay? Certainly in the UK that's true. In the UK, lots of people start out using the Rawlings range synthetic HEMA shop or Night Shop, same company, nylon swords, and so lots of people start out using those, and that's the context of what's going on in UK HEMA. Now, they're used a lot on the continent as well, although to a lesser degree, and they're used in America to a much lesser degree. I think in America, I get the impression for nylon swords, more people are using perhaps Black Fencer or various other makes that are out there. In the UK, some people are using Black Fencer nylons, but they're nowhere near as popular as Rawlings range HEMA shop nylons. Why is that? Well, quite simply, it's probably price, partly. I think that roughly speaking, the HEMA shop ones come in at half the price of Black Fencer. But equally, I've always argued, a lot of people ask me, what do I think of Black Fencer swords? They're great simulators for a nylon sword. But my problem with them is that they hit pretty hard, okay? So if you're looking for a beginner weapon, then for me, the HEMA shop or Red Dragon synthetics, Rawlings range, are, should we say, kinder, softer, lighter alternative for beginner weapons than the Black Fencer ones are, and they're also cheaper as well. And because you kind of get a critical mass, once so many people are using a thing, it becomes convenient for other people to use a thing. And quite simply, if someone's using a Black Fencer synthetic against someone who's using a Red Dragon synthetic, it's kind of not fair, because the Black Fencer one is stiffer and heavier, and you can power through binds, and you can you know, thrust through when you don't have the stiffness in the blade to be able to do that with a HEMA shop. So essentially, it's an unfair advantage. So it's not comparing like with like. They're really different things. So although they're both synthetic sparring swords, they're different things. Right, this is supposed to be a review about Red Dragon gloves, but the reason I'm talking about synthetics is that's the context that lots of these gloves are used in. They're used with synthetic swords, not with steel swords. And you know, I strongly believe, so I know the guys that run the Night Shop, I know Brian pretty well. This isn't a paid advert or anything like that. I'll say if it is, okay? But this is not a paid advert. This is just my, Matt Easton's opinions, who runs Scholar Gladiatoria and Fight Camp and a new event upcoming as well. Quite simply, you know, these were developed at the same time, more or less, as those synthetic weapons. So they kind of go with those weapons. They created a beginner weapon and a beginner glove to make your hands a bit safer when sparring with those weapons. Okay, so that's the first thing. But more importantly, these gloves are hugely successful. They have sold thousands and thousands of them all around the world over many, many years. Now, are they great for steel longsword? No, they're not. But we have better options for steel longsword. I wouldn't really even recommend these even for beginner light sparring with steel longswords. Steel longswords hit freaking hard, okay? And unfortunately, my experience is that beginners often hit harder than more experienced people because they don't know what they're doing, okay? If you swing a sword at them, most beginners go, ah, like this. They flinch and they swing the sword as hard as they possibly can, and they get a double, okay? Doubles are the fucking bane of HEMA and all martial arts, okay? But they're very, very, you have to accept that they happen, and you have to train people as to why doubles happen and how to avoid doubles, and sometimes how to strategically use them in a tournament if you want to win to the rule set but ignore good fencing principles, but that's a whole nother discussion. But basically speaking, you get lots of hard hand hits with beginners, and so therefore I don't think it's a very good idea to take a bunch of beginners, give them steel longswords or Federschwerts, and stick these on them and go and spar. It's not a good idea. You're going to get broken fingers, and surprise, surprise, that's what's happened. Equally, if you go at high competition level, you know, if you go to a large international event, like Swordfish, for example, and people are competing with long swords, like, I'm not saying that nobody wears these. I actually don't know if anybody wears these in longsword, but I'd be highly doubtful, and I suspect they might not even be allowed, because they don't provide enough protection for steel longsword for the amount of force. However, and this is the important bit, for steel saber and steel side sword, and potentially backsword and maybe other similar-ish weapons, one-handed swords, sword and buckler perhaps, these are pretty much the best thing on offer. Now, why is that? Why, you know, people go, oh yeah, but they don't have great protection, and some people have had broken fingers through these. Well, yes, that's true. I'll also point out that people have had broken fingers in all the gloves that I'm aware of. People have had broken fingers in Neyman's, in Sparring Gloves, in Keonig's glove, in all of them, as far as I'm aware, okay? So don't quote me on that. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty certain. I know people have had broken fingers and thumbs in Sparring Gloves. Pretty certain they have in Neyman's, although I don't know that many people who use the Neyman gloves, because well, for various reasons. And Keonig's gloves, I think I heard about someone getting a broken finger in Keonig's gloves. But the fact is, yes, people can get broken fingers in longsword, or indeed in saber and various other weapons, with all gloves, okay, with all the gloves that are on offer. But the fact is that these gloves are the best gloves that you can get currently for doing steel saber or steel side sword, debatably steel sword and buckler, in other words arming sword, and potentially other things as well. And the reason for that is their mobility. So you'll notice that I'm also going to talk, I'll diverge for a second and talk about durability. So this glove here, you'll see it's covered in gaffer tape or duct tape, as some people might call it. And the reason is because it's falling apart. But how old is this glove? Well, this, believe it or not, is a prototype. Okay, so this was a prototype glove when the gloves were first developed. I don't even know how many years ago, let's say about 5 years ago. This glove was sent to me to test out before they'd gone on sale, basically. And this glove has been to numerous countries with me. It has won tournaments. It's won the Fight Camp Sabre tournament. It has won the Long Point Sabre Invitational. It's fought against T-School, Jake Norwood, loads of people basically, okay? Mark Gilbert, tons of people. This glove has been through weekly training, in fact twice weekly training, tournaments, all kinds of stuff, and look, it's still in one piece. Yes, it is being held together with tape, but I have never had anything like a serious hand injury in this glove, and it has not fallen apart. But what I would point out is that this is a prototype, and I know that the production model that's in production now, that you can buy off the website now, is not exactly the same as this. And ironically, I think the newer glove actually gives slightly better protection than this. This has stuff inside, padding inside, that's slightly softer. Now, I will say that means that this glove is a bit more comfortable. Okay, that's why I haven't bought new gloves, because I love the comfort of this one. So this is really flexible, really comfortable, and I can do everything I want to do with my fingers and my hands. And importantly, I can fit it into a saber hilt, and not just any saber hilt. I'm just going to grab an antique. So generally speaking, gymnasium sabers have slightly longer grips than a actual antique saber, but here is an antique saber from the 1860s. It's a nice patent hilt by Reeves, incidentally, with a presentation inscription on the other side. There we go. It's the kind of thing I have lying around my study. And yes, I can indeed, with the thumb up, look, thumb up, okay, and with lots of mobility, avoiding my light fitting, move a sword, move a saber really, really well. Good wrist movement, good finger movement. I can get my thumb up, even with a bit of space to spare. And I can't do that with any other gloves that are on the market. There are other fingered gloves around, okay? Sparring Glove make a fingered glove. Neyman make 2 or 3 different types of fingered gloves. There's obviously the Keonig's gloves, but none of those fit into a saber hilt. And the reason is this large plate that goes across here. So with the Polish Sparring Gloves, with the Neymans, that plate that goes across the knuckles and the back of the hand is too wide. And because it's so wide, and because of the angle that you hold a saber at, you hold a saber at this angle. You don't hold it like that, you hold it like that, okay? And because of that, you can't fit it into the hilt of a saber. Not just an antique saber, you can't even fit it into the hilt of a gymnasium saber, which generally speaking have slightly larger hilts, slightly larger guards, slightly longer grips, so that you can get padded gloves in them. And that was true historically as well, incidentally, because I own a bunch of them. So this really is the most dexterous and flexible glove. It is the only glove I can comfortably fit with my thumb up in a saber hilt. I'm not interested in something like a Spares heavy glove, or the Sparring Glove mitten that I can just about kind of, I see people in, well, I see people all over the place actually using those really protective gloves, and yes, they are really protective, jamming a mitten gauntlet into a hilt and holding it like this. Okay, for the style of saber that I practice, that's useless. That's not using the saber like a saber for me, okay? There might be some saber styles where you do hold it like this. Maybe you could argue Polish saber does. Maybe some Georgian era, you know, Napoleonic era saber does hold it in hammer fist. But for me, I want to get the thumb up, and I'm using I want to be able to use the dexterity of my fingers to be able to do this and to bring the point in line with the forearm so I can do lots of thrusting. I don't want to hold it hammer fist and hold it like a Viking sword or something, you know, or a club. Not saying that Viking swords are held like clubs. But, so to sum up, the very simple fact is, whatever you think about Red Dragons, they are literally the best glove available at the moment, from my point of view, for military saber, 19th century military saber. And I know people who do side sword and sword and buckler who say the same thing, that this is the only glove that they can get the combination of wrist mobility, finger dexterity and size that they can actually fit it into a hilt. I would just comment on the Keonig's gloves. The Keonig's gloves are fantastic. I use them for longsword. Okay, so I've had a pair for a while that Axel and Anders sent me. I'm going to do an update review on those as well. But unfortunately, I can't hold a saber hilt with them. I know that people have demonstrated you can jam a Keonig's glove into one of the larger, like a Reginier long saber hilt. You can physically jam it in there, but it's just not, because of the way that the thumb's constructed and the width of the glove, the general size of the glove, it's just not comfortable for me to use at all. So there we go. Update review of the Red Dragons is that in terms of what they do, yes, they don't offer the best protection in the world, but they're literally the best on offer for saber and side sword and maybe sword and buckler at the moment. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing, in terms of durability, some people have said that some of them fall apart. Maybe the more recent batches do, I don't know. This is a prototype one, and although it is, you know, after many years of much use and using it in tournaments and stuff, this has just about held together. Okay, and I wouldn't expect a glove to last longer than that. There might be some quality control issues. It might be that some you come out of the factory not as well made as others. I don't know, I can't speak for that, because obviously I haven't tested hundreds of them personally. So there we go. Red Dragon gloves, I think they're great. In terms of they're the best we've got. They're not perfect by any means. There's all sorts of things I'd change to them. What would I change, you might be wondering? I'd change the cuff, I'd change the wrist, I would change the side protection on the index and the little fingers. I would have something built in on the end of the fingers. The various things I would change. But as I keep saying, okay, my glasses, as I keep saying, they're the best we've got at the moment, I believe, for saber and things like that. Anyway, I hope this has been somewhat interesting for you. If you are going to go into longsword steel sparring, I don't recommend the Red Dragons. Go for something like the Sparring Glove, the Keonig's glove, the Spares Heavy. Cheers, folks. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We have extra videos on Patreon, and you can follow us on Facebook.